Hi, and welcome to the Las Vegas Advisor interview series. Today we are joined by the author of The Advantage Players, the book that we've been talking about a lot lately. We're here with Michael Kaplan. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, I'm going to kick it over to Anthony, and I think we're going to get into a little bit of the history.
Yeah, first things first. Yeah, I'll introduce Michael in a minute. Advantage Players, no the.
Oh,
it was originally the, and we took that off with reason, right?
Exactly.
We did. So
it was, yeah.
It
originally had another title. Originally it was called, I think it was originally called "I'll Just Stay and See What Happens."
Oh,
which
yeah.
I've said that a lot while reporting stories, but it's not quite as sharp as Advantage Players. Then also we were going to call it "Wired to Win" at one point, but Advantage Players is definitely the title. That's the one.
Can I take a guess why you took out the?
Go ahead.
Because you want the title to start with an A, so it's at the top of the list.
Part of it, but we wanted it to be just a little bit more hard-hitting and succinct, and we didn't want it to be cutesy, like, I'll stick around and see what happens. I'm like, oh. When he told me that one, he goes, what do you think? I was like, yeah, we'll talk about that later.
We'll stick around and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Was his answer.
So let me introduce you real quick. The reason that Michael's here is because the author of Advantage Players. He is a New York Post senior features writer. But what he's really known for is the mainstream writer about gambling. All right, so you've got a lot of gambling periodicals, things like LVA and others, where you have people who are expert in the field writing about it. But in the mainstream, they really don't understand it except for a select few. And Michael is absolutely the dean of that select few. He writes for Cigar Aficionado, where he essentially probably eclipsed the guy before him, which was Michael Koenig, who's done a couple books for us, Man with $100,000 Breasts, Telling Lies and Getting Paid. But now it's Michael Kaplan. Also, it was written for New York Times Magazine, Wired, GQ, and on and on. Pretty much right? Is that about it?
That's about right.
All right, cool. So let's start out the way we usually do. Give us a little setup about how this book came to be and what made you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've written 4 books, and Anthony and I had been talking about doing a book together, and we came up with the idea of doing a book that'll be a collection of stories I've already written. And through conversations with Anthony, the editor of the book, Deke, we talked, and it kind of became like, it seems kind of dry just doing a bunch of gambling articles. Like I think we came up with the idea of making it be a little bit more narrative, a little bit deeper, a little bit more pointed about people who win. And the idea is that it's about people who win at stuff, who figure out how to win by being advantage players. And that became the obvious title for the book, Advantage Players. And then it went a little bit further, that advantage players don't only exist in gambling. Even though it's a gambling term and not normally applied to people outside of gambling, there are people outside of gambling who I very much consider advantage players.
So basically, I'll tell you, behind the scenes, Deke and I, as Deke Castleman, who had a lot to do with the whole idea, the concept of making this, like what we call a cohesive themed treatment, where we talk about advantage play, runs through the whole thing. And I told Deke, I said, I don't want another column collection. We did a column collection, 2 of them with Koenig. They're good stories, they're great, but we wanted to be more than bathroom reading, and I think that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. The book is broken up into sections, and it even goes a little bit beyond what most gamblers consider to be advantage play. Because most gamblers, certainly, well, I mean, listen, I think the idea of advantage play in the strictest definition is that it's finding legal ways to beat the game. But we kind of took it a little bit further. We went over the line a little bit, because there's a chapter in there on a cheater. There's a chapter in there on a guy who allegedly swindled a cryptocurrency guy out of $25 million worth of crypto. There's a chapter on these 3 blind Israeli brothers who started their own phone company by running all the phone calls through the Israeli Army radio station, and kind of a mini sex
section.
Mini sex section with Lexington Steele, a man with a 10.5-inch appendage, penis, whatever you want to call it. I don't know how blue we get on this show, but yeah, there's a chapter on him. There's a financial dominatrix. There's the great Heidi Fleiss, Hollywood Madam. There's a chapter on the $300,000 a year stripper. So, but they're all advantage players in their own domains.
And it's interesting to see how they get portrayed as such.
Right. So it's a mindset that you're talking about. It's people that can figure out how to win in a variety of ways.
Right. It's figuring out how to win and being smart enough to do it in a manner that other people have not been able to think of, and to really capitalize on what you're doing.
Yeah, that's the key. I mean, coming up with unique and novel ways to do what everybody else is trying to do.
Exactly.
And that's why they do it better. How long, in your remembrance, recollection, how long did this take, Michael? To me, it seems like 3 decades. But
well, for me, this was a 25-year process, because I started writing for Cigar Aficionado in 2000. So as far as I'm concerned, this was 25 years in the making, because that's when I started writing gambling stories. But in terms of working with Anthony and Deke, I would say it must have been serious, like about 3 years.
3 years is what I had written down.
I would say it was about 3 years, but went through different iterations. Everybody got jammed up with stuff. We kind of went back and forth on certain things. And you know what? I'm glad now that we put the time in, we got it right. And listen, I say this with pride. As Anthony put it, I'm the most neurotic writer he's ever worked with. So every time I would start reading something, he's reading the whole book again. And he's going to come back with a bunch of changes again. But I think the book benefited from that.
Yeah, I like to challenge anybody to find a typo in there. I mean, there almost always is, but man, this book has been edited many, many times.
It's been edited, and there have been at least 2 copy editors on it.
Oh, God. Yes, at least. All right, so let's get into a few questions, which I think are kind of explain, they get us to the nuts and bolts of this thing. And the one that everybody asks is why, especially the gamblers, why do they talk to you? I mean, these are some of the most secretive people in the world. And so many people who have read this book now, who have talked to me, said, I can't believe that he or she said that to him for print. And like, why? How did that happen, Michael?
Part of it is because, I'm a journalist. Like, I'm used to getting people to talk to me. I've gotten a lot of hard to speak with people to give me information, to talk to me. So when I first started doing this, to me, like talking to gamblers who are secretive, it sort of is like business as usual on some level. And I know how to get people to talk to me. And then as I got more and more into the world, people began trusting me. I mean, I'm not somebody who does, gotcha stories or screws over sources, because it's just not the way I operate. And that helped. Max Rubin helped a lot. Like, he gave me a lot of credibility. I mean, the fact that he was open to me attending the blackjack ball gave me instant credibility. I mean, I met, this is a great example. I met Rob Wrightson, a very secretive guy. He's not somebody who's running around to talk to journalists at the blackjack ball. I told him who I was, said I wanted to talk to him. He's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe we'll talk. I don't think he had a big interest in speaking with me. And then I think he asked Max, like, who is this guy? And Max said, oh, no, he's okay. He's a really good writer. He's interviewed all these other people. He's worth talking to. Then I got a call from Wrights, and he said, I'm in New York. You want to go get pizza? Gluten-free pizza, because he needs to eat gluten-free. And we went and had pizza. We hit it off. Like, not only did we do a couple stories together, but we're friends. I mean, he came into town for the party, and he's a great guy. Rob Wrightson is an awesome guy. Okay. So I think there's the Max factor. There's no pun intended. There's the Max factor. There's my just being a good journalist and my being good at getting people to talk to me. I mean, that's kind of my job. So I don't know. I'm persistent as hell. Like, I do not take no. Like, to me, when somebody says no, that's the beginning of the process, not the end.
Hey guys, it's Andrew from the Las Vegas Advisor, reminding you to click on the link in the description box below to get your 2025 Member Rewards coupon book. Food coupons, gambling coupons, all kinds of cool stuff to do in that Member Rewards coupon book. You can also use the code word Andrew for a minus $5 discount off of your Member Rewards book. Link in the description box below. All right, Michael, you know what? I have a question for you. Are there players that are that you've targeted that you want to talk to, that they're so good that they just say, you know what, I'm sorry, Michael, we love you, but we're not talking to you?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, Jelko is one guy who I'd love to speak with, and I mean, I've approached him at the Blackjack Ball. We had a brief conversation. He said, you seem like a good guy. I've heard, I know you've interviewed a lot of people, but yeah, I'm not interested in talking. And in fact, when that lottery story came out, I already knew about that before it ran. I knew most of it.
The Wall Street Journal. So.
But I had no interest in writing about it if he wasn't going to talk to me and didn't want me to write about it. And the person who told me it said, it hinges on Jelko wanting you to do it. And Jelko didn't want me to do it. I said, okay, fine. There's other things to write about. So Jelko's one guy. Bill Benter. I mean, I quasi spoke with him when I did a Wired story about the Hong Kong horse racing team. Although my main source for that was Alan Woods, who appears in the book in a different story than the one that I did for Wired. But Bill Benter's a guy I'd love to have a long sit-down conversation with. I don't think he's incredibly thrilled about doing that. And then there's the lottery guy, Doppy, who we've talked. He's an awesome guy. He's told me some interesting things, but he has zero interest in sitting down and doing a real story with me. So those are three off the top of my head.
So let's go back. Let's go on that, son. Why do those who do? You said, okay, you're a good reporter. You get it out of them or whatever. I mean, do you think it's ego? I mean, is it something they crave recognition? I mean, it's hard to do something very well and nobody ever knows about it.
I think there's an element of wanting to be recognized for what you do, but to not blow up your life in the course of doing it. And I think people realize that they could talk to me, that I'm not going to write stuff that's going to, blow up all their spots. And, I think they know that I can do. I mean, James Grosjean respects me enough that he let me BP for him, and I write about that in the book. I mean, he called me to see if I wanted to play for him, which was like an honor. And I mean, it was an amazing, having been on a card counting team, playing with Grosjean is very, very different. It's a very different experience. It's a more profitable experience, and you're less likely to lose your money. I can guarantee you that. And like that to me is an incredible level of trust.
I think it's important, when we talk about Grosjean, if you watch this show and if you're an LVA person, you've heard about Grosjean, but a lot of people don't know the name. Pretty much thought of as the GOAT. Either him or Steve Forty, who preceded him. And there's a lot of Grosjean in this book, a lot of Grosjean that, you're going to find out more about this guy than you ever thought you would, because he is very secretive.
Oh, Forty's another one. He's another guy I would like to speak with who's never expressed a lot of interest in talking to me. So
Steve is very private. I can attest.
So yeah, I mean, there's a handful. But though the great Grosjean, the Grosjean thing, as far as that goes, I remember when he has that book called Beyond Counting, and I've said to him, I said, why would you put out a book with your plays in it? And he said to me, he goes, you think that's the only book? Meaning he's got other books of plays that he's not making public. So I thought that was an interesting response.
You know who else told me that? Ian Anderson. When he did Burning the Tables in Las Vegas with us, I said, boy, you're giving away a lot. He goes, I'm kind of beyond that now.
All right. So, Michael, I've been reading Advantage Players, and I've come to notice that there's not that much poker, like Texas Hold'em poker, Omaha poker. How come?
Well, I've written a lot about poker, and I might have put more poker in there than there is. I think Anthony was not that crazy about there being a lot of poker in the book. I mean, I have an amazing chapter that I could have put in on Stu Unger, which I was the last person, arguably the last person to interview him before he died. I mean, Nolan Dahl maybe, but I was certainly the last magazine writer to interview him before he died. And I wrote an amazing story about him. And there's an amazing backstory that wasn't published previously that was at the front of the chapter. But I think there was an argument about Stu that he didn't die in a very advantageous way. I mean, things ended not great. And, I mean, there's a chapter in there on Billy Baxter, who inarguably is a real advantage player. It's a chapter in there on Phil Ivey, total advantage player. I mean, I had a chapter on Mike Matusow that I wanted to put in that wound up not quite making the cut.
Puggy Pearson.
But honestly, those guys I consider all of those guys advantage players. I mean, if you could sit down and make money playing poker, beating other people who think they're at least pretty good if they're sitting down with you, you're an advantage player, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, we had, for those of you who are thinking about doing books out there, you're going to always have to battle with your editors and your publisher. And this was one that Michael and I talked a lot about how much poker. And I was against a lot of poker for a few reasons. One was because there's so much poker already. And to me, it seemed a little bit repetitive that we're going to see more poker. Two is I wanted it to open up for other people that you might not have read about before, which is did. You can only have so many chapters in the book. The third, and this is where we clash, is that I really do feel that a lot of the great poker players are not true advantage players. Rather, they are savant-like players of a single game. Now, you take a guy like Phil Ivey, who we left in, and he just beats everything. Every time he plays, if you see Phil playing, he's got an edge. You can almost put money on it, right? A lot of these guys, they win so much money in poker, they blow it off through what we call leaks in other areas. And I don't see that as advantage play, but you argue with me on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I would say not everybody blows off their money at leaks. And I would say that there are a lot of poker players. In fact, I was with a poker player yesterday. Like, he puts every hand into his phone and, what happened during that hand. And he might have a question at the bottom. Oh, check this out, check that out. And then he'll go home after playing and run those hands through solvers and see what was the advantage play. Did he make the advantage play or not? I don't know. Somebody like that to me is a super advantage player. I mean, he's like really dissecting the game, just, a very, very complex game in a way that not everybody does. Even really good players don't do that. So I'd say that there are a lot of advantage players in poker, and with everybody playing, GTO, the game theory optimal, that requires a lot of studying. It's not just going in there and flying by the seat of your pants and having a lot of balls and being able to throw a lot of money in, or getting reads on people. It's going home and studying and learning the game and learning the plays you're going to do. Not unlike, it sort of turns the game of poker into something closer to card counting or shuffle tracking or something like that, where you really learn the correct moves to make under various situations and then make them when the timing is right, if you're good.
Yeah, there were some good chapters we took out. The Stu Unger chapter was terrific. It was really long. It was somewhat repetitive for the information, but Stu Unger, this is my example A, where I say here's a guy that was just a savant. He was, some say, nobody ever was like him in all the great games that he was good, but the guy couldn't hardly pick out his clothes. You know what I mean?
Well, he couldn't hold on to his money, that's for sure. But I mean, he was like the greatest gin player without a doubt. I mean, multiple people have told me about Stu Unger showing up in Vegas. They said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to beat this kid at gin," and then he would crush them. And he was a savant at gin, and apparently he traded gin lessons for poker lessons with Chip Reese. Then he went in and he went out and crushed poker. I mean, getting taught poker by Chip Reese is a bit of an advantage play.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so let's move on a little bit to, we already talked at the front of this interview about the non-gamblers. All right, well, the non-casino players, the non-gambling subject of this book. Talk a little bit about, we came up with this idea in the middle of what we call sneak attacks. And the sneak attacks were they were quickie vignettes, right? They were quick vignettes. They weren't full chapters. And there were some interesting ones there, like the Ramones.
Yeah.
And the guy who cuts locks, like LOX locks. He cuts fish, right?
Right.
And Ernie Moody, who invented triple play. I mean, talk about some of those. There were some good examples of non-gamblers, although Ernie was in the gambling field.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Ramones. Okay, first of all, I have a soft spot for the Ramones. I grew up listening to them, love the band. I bought their first album when it first came out, saw them a zillion times at CBGB, at Max's Kansas City, wherever. And I'm a big fan. But those guys were 100% advantage players, because while everybody else was sitting in their room trying to learn to play guitar like Jimi Hendrix, the Ramones knew 3 chords, went into a recording studio, made the record for I could be wrong, it's like $6,000 or something. And it's one of the all-time great records. I mean, I think as Joey Ramone put it, we knew 3 chords, but they were the 3 right chords, which is definitely an advantage play. So I think those guys are total advantage players. As far as the salmon slicing goes, this is a guy named Jay Benitez, and he is unbelievable. I mean, the great story is there was a little gourmet shop in my neighborhood in Brooklyn, and this guy would slice salmon there, and it was amazing. Like, you'd go there on a Sunday, it was filled with fathers, buying salmon to bring home for their families for brunch. He'd slice it thin, it would be perfect. It was amazing. And I wrote about him for the New York Post, and the title of the story was, "The Best Slice in New York is Not Pizza." And the guys from Major Food Group, the big restaurant company in New York, they were getting ready to open up this place called Siddell's, and they needed a salmon slicer. And they read the article, and they went to this little place in Brooklyn. They bought 2 pounds of salmon, not saying who they were, and they were like, "Holy smokes, this guy Kaplan is right. This
Holy
guy
smoked salmon.
Yeah, holy smoked salmon. This guy's an amazing slicer." And they hired him, and he has a specific way of slicing. He goes after the salmon in the right way, and the salmon is unbelievable. And there's a Siddell's in Las Vegas, and the salmon there is great because he teaches all the salmon slicers in the Siddell's group of restaurants how to do it.
Cut above.
Cut above. He's a cut above, without a doubt.
Cut above the rest.
Well, that's cool.
hilarious.
Interesting thing about the sneak attacks. I love the sneak attacks because they break it up. They break it up a little bit. And at the very end, we said, man, we got to do a last-second sneak attack. It delayed the book by another month, but we got to do it on Vegas Matt because Vegas Matt did our show.
Yep.
And it was so popular. We got to do it. And it was so good, the interview, that it became a full chapter. We couldn't contain it into a sneak attack. So there's also a chapter on Vegas Matt.
Vegas Matt blew my mind. I mean, I have to confess, I'd never heard of the guy before. And when Anthony first came to me, I was like, I don't know, it didn't seem like it fit. But it fits in an insane way. He might be the biggest advantage player in the whole book because he turns losing in casino games into a multi-million-dollar business. Right. I mean, he could go to the blackjack ball and he makes more money than, I'm not going to say everyone, maybe him and Jelko could have it out, but he makes more money than most of the, quote unquote, real APs at the blackjack ball. And I mean, the guy's got 1.2 million viewers on YouTube, and he really, really puts in the time. Every day these guys go out and they play, and it's compelling to watch. Like, I was like, when we first said it would be in there, I go, okay, I'll watch this for a minute just so I could see what it is. 45 minutes later, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Yeah. So it's cool. It's fun to watch. The banter between the guys is great. I don't know. This guy is 100% an advantage player, and I thought it was awesome.
And the name of the chapter is?
Oh, okay, I have to look it up.
I got it. And the name of the chapter is The Man Who Wins by Losing. It's pretty good.
That's great. And the man who came to the book party, right? We had a book release party, and Vegas Matt and his crew was there.
Yeah, we had a launch party a couple days ago, which is why Michael is here, because he came in for it. A great party, eh? Everyone who showed up. Heidi showed up.
Heidi Fleiss was there. John Chang was there. The amazing Kelly Sun was there with giant sunglasses. Gina, quote unquote, Miss Brown was there. They're all in the book, and they were at the party, which amazed me that they would come to this party. Richard Munchkin was there. Yep. It was like a fantastic group of people, and it was amazing. We did it at 8 Lounge in Resorts World, and this guy Francesco LaFranconi, who does the drinks over at Carver Steak, came up with a signature cocktail called, what else? The Advantage Player. And there we put the back in tribute to the original title. Right. The Advantage Player. And Chef Nicole from Brezza made amazing food. I saw everybody loading up their plates with food. Yep. I mean, Advantage players do know how to take advantage. So without a doubt, a lot of food was consumed that night.
We did.
But it was awesome. It was a great party. They threw a great bash for us. There were even these cigarette lighters with, the 8 logo and the Advantage Players logo on it. It was really, really a fun night. And I'm grateful to everybody involved, and I'm grateful to all the people who came. I mean, it was a blast.
It was a blast. Resorts World did a fantastic job. You're right about the lighters. Those lighters have some weight to them. They were a lot of fun. Everybody got a lighter, everybody got a book, everybody got a signature drink.
And they had all these people that they would like to kick out that they were feeding for free.
That's right. Yeah. Max Rubin was there.
Yeah, Max. Las Vegas's least wanted were there. Yeah, and one Advantage player who I used to play blackjack with, she had her lighter taken away when she was boarding the plane. Security saw it, and they took it. So that was not an advantage play for her. But I'm going to get her another lighter, so I've got a few extra.
Okay, so I couldn't not bring this up and have you talk about it. The concluding chapter of the book is actually about you as an advantage player, but not as a gambler. So you want to talk briefly on that?
Correct. The epilogue is titled "My Ultra Rare Cancer and the Scientists, Doctors Who Played It to a Draw." I got diagnosed 2 years ago with a brutal form of cancer called mantle cell lymphoma, uncurable, affects 1 out of 200,000 people. Biggest jackpot I ever hit, which is unfortunate that the prize was cancer. But the doctor I had, my original oncologist, wanted to give me like brutal chemotherapy that doesn't work permanently. I was like, screw this, I'm gonna find a better game. And that game existed at Anderson Cancer Center. There's a doctor there who I had read about, I'd done a lot of research, made a zillion phone calls, just like I would do for any story, or just like any advantage player does before attacking a game. Like James Grosjean doesn't just go in and play, he knows what's gonna happen before he gets there. So I viewed this as the ultimate advantage play. And I got an appointment. This guy, is part of a group of doctors who spearheaded treatment that doesn't involve chemotherapy. It's an infusion every 8 weeks, 6 pills a day, and I had stage 4 cancer. I now have 0 cancer evident in my blood. There's a doctor at Weill Cornell Medicine in New York, Dr. Peter Martin, who I consider this guy like one of the top people in my life. He saved my life. And that's the epilogue of the book, and you could read about how that all happened, how it unfolded, and the great story, and what everybody should do if they get diagnosed with a terrible disease.
So we can. There was actually who did the quickie online thing? Was that the New York Post?
The New York Post we did. Yeah, there's a documentary about this whole situation about how advantage gambling basically helped save my life, which is awesome.
We'll link to it.
Okay.
All right. Great. Okay. So. A couple other things about the book, as we continue to promote here a little bit. The photo spread in the middle. I'm pretty proud of the photo spread. I mean, we've been talking about James Grosjean. You get a look at James Grosjean, one with his face blurred, one with him in some sort of costume, right, disguise.
Dressed up as a biker.
Yeah, but you can see him, right? You can see what he looks like. You got Don, the great, crazy Don Johnson, the Hall of Fame blackjack player and Hall of Fame partier. You got Ernie Moody's airplane, right in there. We've got Mattress Mac, one with me and Frank B. We've got Kelly's son and Phil, Ivy, the Baccarat.
And Kelly's son and Aquafina,
right,
who hopefully is going to play here in an upcoming movie based on one of the chapters in this book.
Yeah. So we've got. Would you agree? We got a good photo spread.
Awesome photo spread. I mean, if you like gambling, you get to see all your heroes in there.
Yeah, you actually get to see these people. Vegas Matt and his crew, right? They're
awesome.
They're all there. All right. And then finally, I just got to say something about the blurbs, because the cover blurbs. Typically, we put the book out, and in the publishing process. You put the book out before it's been published, and you let some readers read it, and hopefully they'll give you a blurb. The blurbs we got were like amazing for this. We got, of course, who you'd expect from the gambling world, Don Schlesinger, who everybody respects, Hall of Famer, Blackjack Hall of Famer, Nathaniel Tilton, who wrote our book, The Blackjack Life, Phil Hellmuth, the biggest gold bracelet winner in history, 17, the World Series of Poker, but also some really big literary names, starting with Ben Mesrick, who wrote Bringing Down the House, is on the front. But tell us about some of the names back there.
Ben Mesrick loved the book. This guy, Larry Ratso Sloman, who you may not know him, but he basically, wrote the Howard Stern book. He wrote Mike Tyson's autobiography. He wrote a great book about Bob Dylan. And these have been New York Times best-selling books. He's an awesome guy, super cool. And I mean, I sent him the book, and I don't even know him that well. Like, we've worked together. He's helped me out a few times with stories. I said, "Do you ever give book blurbs?" He's like, "Well, yeah, sometimes." And I sent it to him, and it blew him away. Like, he loved the book. He called me and started talking about all different things in the book, sent me a long, long blurb. Couldn't run the whole thing. We kind of boiled it down. He's in there. Peter Olson is in there. Olson co-wrote the great book on Stu Unger, and he gave me a really nice blurb. David Hill wrote a book that got singled out by the New York Times, a book called The Vapors. He loved it. He gave me a really good blurb. I mean, I'm grateful to have these guys who like the book enough to want to, write good blurbs for me.
Yeah, it was embarrassment of riches. I mean, we really did. I was like, wow, really? You got all of these names?
And they take up the whole back cover. I said, I don't want like a description on the back cover. I'd rather have these guys saying what they think of it.
Yeah, we didn't write any back cover. We wrote it, but we didn't use it. We just used the blurbs.
Mm-hmm. But we're AP, so we didn't waste anything. That's up on Amazon.
That's right. Good job.
All right, and Michael, you know, when we have guests on our interview series, we always have to ask, what is your favorite restaurant to eat at in Vegas, or group of restaurants?
Well, I would say my two favorite restaurants in Resorts World would have to be Brezza, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I would say Carver Steak. I love those two places. Those are two places that I really, really dig. And I mean, outside of there, I had dinner at Ito this weekend. That's that 12-seat sushi bar on the top floor of Fontainebleau. That was amazing. Like, it was like the best sushi I've ever eaten. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's only 12 seats, so you can't go there on every trip to Vegas. But if you're lucky, you know a couple people, you know, they're kind enough to help you get in. And the meal there was absolutely amazing.
Is that like an omakase, like big giant number on that, like $800, $700, something like that?
Big giant number on it, and it's omakase.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. And our second question is?
That would be, what is your favorite gambling book, other than something you've written? It doesn't have to be an LVA book, and it could also be a book that inspired you in your life.
My favorite gambling book is the classic Fast Company by John Bradshaw.
Yeah.
I mean, he wrote that back in the day when nobody was really paying attention to gamblers. I mean, he had to have written that in the 1970s. I mean, he's hanging out with Minnesota Fats. He's hanging out with Minnesota Fats. He's hanging out with Titanic Thompson, you know, in his declining years in Texas. And there's a chapter in there on Puggy Pearson, which is amazing. I mean, it's probably just as well that we didn't have the Puggy chapter, because I cannot do better than what he wrote. I mean,
Wow.
That's absolutely a fantastic book, and it's an inspiring book. It's 100% worth getting.
It's almost a predecessor of what you did.
It is.
I mean,
It
in a way.
is. It is. It's great. Yeah, and it's great. I mean, and he wrote about these guys when nobody knew who the hell they were. I mean, I don't think these guys were getting a lot of calls from journalists. I don't think, you know, Puggy was getting called by, you know, big time New York journalists to come out and write about them. And yeah, it was amazing, him writing about Puggy hustling people at golf. It was really great.
All right, Michael. Well, thank you so much for coming in today. What a great party at Resorts World. It was a lot of fun. Anything to add, Anthony?
Well, no, other than we want people to buy this book. I mean, we're both in this together.
Yes.
You know? I mean, publisher, author here. I'm glad. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So far, so good. Sales have been very good. Reviews have been very good. And, you know, we're always looking for the next great thing here, and this could be it.
All right. And
Fingers crossed.
that's it for this month's interview. We'll have somebody new next month. And thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. And we'll see you when you least expect it.
Excellent.